In this problem, I'm going to show you guys how to solve a cubic equation using two methods. The first method is going to be the factor by grouping method, and then I will show you how to use the graphing calculator, the TI-nSpire, to solve this equation by graphing. The first thing you want to do here for factor by grouping is group the first two terms and then the last two terms together. We want to focus on the first two terms. Here we want to factor out the greatest common factor. The biggest number that goes into 12 and 9 is 3. And when you're factoring out the greatest common factor with letters or variables, you want to look for the smallest number of variables that we have, or look at the smallest exponent. In this case, it's x squared. That's going to go on the outside of our parentheses here. And what we need to do is fill out some information on the inside of the parentheses. So let's start with the 3 that we have on the outside. 3 times what right here would give us 12? Well, that would be 4. And if I have x squared times how many more x's would get me to x to the third? That would just be 1x. Because when you're multiplying with letters or variables, you add the exponents. Now you can do this in a reverse method, so to speak. Here we can divide instead of multiplying. We could have said 12 divided by 3 is 4, and x to the third divided by x squared, you would subtract the exponents, would just leave us with x. So now what we need to do is we need to fill out this part of the parentheses here. 3 times what is 9? That would be positive 3, so we add it. And x squared times no more x's would give us x squared. The beautiful thing about factoring by grouping here is we have something called, what I like to call a match. And we use the match, or the second set of parentheses here, to help us figure out how to factor the negative 32x minus 24. And what we want to do now is, all we need to do is figure out what can we multiply on the outside of 4x plus 3 that would give us negative 32x minus 24. Well, I know that 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. So check this out. Negative 8 times 4x is negative 32x. Negative 8 times 3 is negative 24. So now what do? We need to create our two factors here. The outside terms are going to go together. So we are going to have 3x squared minus 8. And then what I like to call the match is going to go together, 4x plus 3. We're going to set that equal to 0. To solve, we want to create two equations. We're going to have 3x squared minus 8 equals 0. And then we will have 4x plus 3 equals 0. Let's look at this first one here, 3x squared minus 8. We want to add 8 to the other side. We're doing opposites. And then we divide by 3. Divide by 3. That leaves us with x squared equals 8 divided by 3. We need to get x by itself. The opposite of squaring is take the square root. So if I take the square root, it gets rid of the 2. But when I take the square root, I need to do plus or minus the square root of 8 divided by 3. That tells me I'm going to have two answers. I'm going to have a positive square root of 8 divided by 3 and a negative square root of 8 divided by 3. I want to use the calculator here to get some kind of estimation of what the decimal value is of the square root of 8 divided by 3. Let's do that. We're going to go here into new calculator. I want to figure out what is the square root of 8 divided by 3. And I want the positive and negative value of this. And it's 1.63299. We're just going to round it to 1.63. So we will say that x is equal to positive 1.63 and negative 1.63. So I actually have two answers down here. Let's jump over to this equation over here. We're going to solve for x, do the opposite, subtract 3 to the other side. So that's 4x equals -3. Then do the opposite of multiplying, which is divide by 4. Let's get the decimal version of this. That's going to be -0.75. So we have three answers here. We have positive and negative 1.63, and we have negative 0.75. But what does that look like if we were to graph it in the calculator? Let's take a look here. We would go to New Graphs. We're going to type in our original equation, 12x to the third power plus 9x squared minus 32x minus 24. And then we just press enter. And what we're looking for is, since we set this equal to 0, we're looking for where it crosses the x-axis. And if you see, it crosses the x-axis at 3 locations. Those are called zeros, and we can calculate those zeros. Go under Menu, Analyze Graph. We're looking for 0. And I'll calculate this one right here, and you can see that the answer is -1.63. That was one of the answers that we got. Calculate another 0. You can see this answer here is -0.75. And then we'll calculate the third 0, which is 1.63. We're only looking at the x value.